I'd like to dedicate the learning today in memory of Avraham Yitzchak ben Yonah, who passed away 26 years ago. And we wish Sue and all your family only smachot, and that please God, you should have the energy and the enthusiasm to carry on. I think it must be going 26 years this year. Right?
I was longer. It's since 1995.
So please God,
yeah.
Please God, another 28 years in good health. And it's amazing the commitment that everybody has. And also I'd like to dedicate the learning, with Sue's permission, in memory of Dayan Aaron Troy, Dayan Chanoch ben Yisrael, who passed away about 10 days ago. And he had a massive impact, not only in this community and in the whole of England, but Europe and worldwide. And his neshama should also have an aliyah. And also, this is the first time I'm back in person, and it's an absolute honour to be back. I think it's the first time I'm back in person. And welcome to Rabbi Sam and Liat, who are wonderful. I know Liat because her mum lives down the road to my parents. I've known her since she was very young, and I was a colleague of hers and Sam's at Hasmoneah. So I know both of them even before they went to go and live in Israel, and they were powerhouses then. And I'm sure they've got much more experience, and they've taken on more knowledge, and hopefully they can impart some of their enthusiasm and some of their knowledge to this community, who are always ready to listen and learn more things. I hope it all goes well for them. So this is what I'm talking about today. It's Parshas Vayishlach, and there's lots of things going on in Parshas Vayishlach, but it starts off where Yaakov sent messengers to Esav because he's hoping to reconciliate with him, his brother, his estranged brother. But people talk a lot about that, but I would like to talk about the end of this week's parsha, and that is 42, 43 psukim dedicated to talking about the genealogy of Esav and his family. Now, I have never really learned this before, and I decided one year when somebody asked me would I give a share this time of the year, and I said, do you know what, I'm going to challenge myself. So I'm telling you right now, I am not an expert on this subject. I've done a lot of research, and I'll share my research with you, but you've also got lots of really good ideas. When I found that when I've come here, that you've come up with your own ideas and insights when you're reading the sentences, the verses, and so we're gonna learn together. So I'm going to share some of the sources, but I know that you've got amazing insights, so I can't wait to hear them. So there's 43 verses. So the question is, the overarching concept I have is that the Torah is given by God. God is the author. Why? And we don't waste any words, any letters. Every time there's a letter or a word or something repeated or something missed out, it's highly significant. And for me, that's unbelievable. It's not like even Shakespeare, which we can analyse the words of Shakespeare very carefully, which is very important. You know, in school they're doing Macbeth now, but the Torah is like a whole new level of looking at the Torah on a literary level. Now, so then you're thinking to yourself, like, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and the 12 tribes are really important. So why do we, I don't want to dare say the word, waste 43 verses talking about Esav's family? Any thoughts?
Well, just that it needed to be written down because we wouldn't remember it.
Okay.
I wouldn't remember it.
Okay, I wouldn't remember it either. Yeah, Ellen?
Well, I think there has to be some acknowledgement of, with the sibling rivalry, that there's got to be a reconciliation, an understanding of the other. That Rabbi Sachs was talking about, that you can't, like it says here, being Jewish means looking down on Gentiles. It doesn't. Never think being Jewish tells you to look down on non-religious. So they're another religion, they're another tribe. Somehow or other, I think it's some way we've got to come to some understanding that we're brothers in some sense. We don't think alike.
Okay, you're not supposed to read ahead, you know what I mean? Just stealing my thunder. Thank you for stealing my thunder. But Avraham is called Avraham Avinu, our father, but he's also called Avram HaIvri. Now, Ivri, we like Hebrew, the Hebrew, but also the word Ivri comes from Aver. So either it's from Shem ve'Aver, like it comes like a descendant from Aver, but Aver is like Me'aver HaYarden, the other side. We are like almost like the whole world is on one side, and Avraham was different. He had like different opinions, different theology. He was not against the whole world. He was just the other. We are the other. But we also have to be very tolerant of whatever the other is, whether that would be today the Uyghurs or Ukraine. It's yes. So yes, definitely. So the first thing I wanted to say was in memory of Rabbi Sachs and this teaching, which is still very much alive today, where he wrote this in 2019. Do you want to read it for us, Ellen? Rabbi Sachs, Things Life Has Taught About Me, source 1.
Okay, never look down on others. Never think that being Jewish means looking down on Gentiles. It doesn't. Never think that being a religious Jew entitles you to look down on non-religious Jews. It doesn't. The greatest Jew, Moses, was also, according to the Torah, the humblest person on the face of the earth. Humility does not mean self-abasement. True humility is the ability to see good in others without worrying about yourself.
So, yeah, you preempted what I was going to say. I'm saying you preempted what I was going to say is that just because Esav isn't us, it doesn't mean he isn't valued. And the rabbis tell us that Esav could have been. He could have had the most potential. In fact, Yitzchak, his father, saw him as someone incredible. And to the best of my knowledge, I'm not the biggest expert, but to the best of my knowledge, there's nowhere actually written in the Torah which actually, on a literal sense, says that Esav did anything bad. I don't want to say the rabbis invented it, because we have a tradition, and the tradition is based very carefully on the words of the text. But if you read the stories in Bereishis, in Genesis, it doesn't seem on face value that Esav did something bad. But there's obviously...
Is it because it's the other side of, because there is a criticism of Yaakov, that of the deception, and that he wasn't the sort of perfect individual, that we have to see the other side, that maybe were some redeeming features about Esav. So
there were definitely redeeming features about Esav. We're going to talk about the redeeming features. He had lots of redeeming features, and some people say he could have been the person who did carry he had the potential to be somebody amazing if he would have used his talents in the best way. But it's very neutral, so to speak. The Torah itself is quite neutral about Esav's behavior, and whatever he does, and I'll show you some of the stories today, we see that the rabbis interpret what he did as very bad. It's almost like they're out to get him. It's like when a newspaper journalist is a TV news, BBC journalist always wants to see the bad, what's going on in Israel. They'll say something. They'll take a picture of a soldier helping a Palestinian boy, and they'll somehow frame it in a way that makes it. There's a spin doctor out there, but we have to understand that we don't just understand the Torah as it's written, just the written Torah. We have to take it accompanied with the oral Torah, which is the Torah Shabbat Peh. We believe in the Pharisaic tradition, the rabbinic tradition. We can't just say something, let's say like, for example, we have the Sadducees who take everything very literally and say, right, on Shabbat, it says let's say, for example, you shouldn't bathe a cow in its mother's milk. Well, when was the last time you know anyone who did that? But what does that mean, you shouldn't bathe a cow in mother's milk? We shouldn't eat meat with milk. Yeah. And all the laws that derive out of the keeping a kosher home, meat and milk. But it doesn't actually mean that the thing you can't do is take a cow and bathe it in its mother's milk, because that's not what we're going to be doing. And there are lots of other examples. We have to take... I don't want to say take everything at face value. Every word is important, but we take with us the rabbinic tradition and the rabbinic understanding to be able to understand what's going on. I just want to say a tiny little thing, but not much more about it, is that a lot is written about Seir and Edom, which are part of the nations of Esav, and that is historically quite important. And I'm not going to go into anything about that, but Edom and Esav is, so to speak, known as the Rome, sort of like the ancestor of Rome. And it's so for people who want to learn about that, there's lots more to read about it, but I'm not going to be going down that path in any way. I'm going to just talk about Esav, and I'd like to take some pertinent messages out of that chapter where we read chapter 36, Perek Lamed Vov, and take a take-home message with us. So as being the Jewish nation, we like to consider ourselves to be a light to the nations, a light to the world, but that doesn't mean we cannot learn things from other people. We can learn things from other people. And the other thing about Esav is, remember, he was Yaakov's brother, and he was Yitzchak's child, and he was Abraham's grandchild, so he's effectively our cousin. And I also think about the story of Rivka, a couple of weeks ago from Parshas told us, when Rivka, it says, Vayotzritzu habonim bekirba, and the children sort of struggled inside her, and she went, Vatelech lidrosh es Hashem, it's not on your sheet, she went to go and ask God, what's going on? I don't understand. And there's a midrash which says, she walked past a house of idolatry, or I don't know, a house of ill repute, and the baby was sort of kicking trying to get out. And then she went to a shul or a house of learning, and the baby was trying to get out. And she thought, I think my child's got like some sort of mental health disorder, because how can my child want both those two things? And that's when they either say that she went to the house of Shem Ve'eva, or she had a prophecy directly from God to say, do not worry, you've got two babies inside. And then, so to speak, she was calm, because she thinks to herself, even if one wants to go on that trajectory, that's okay. If one wants to go here and one wants to go there, that's fine. The worst thing is a person who's mixed up, has no sense of purpose, has no goal, because once you've got a sense of purpose, the sense of purpose can be redirected. If you're hovering around all over the place, jack of all trades, master of none, you've got no hope of getting anywhere. So that's just like a complete side point. I just want to share with you something that I found. It's a Midrash Tanchuma in Parshas Vayishlach, and it's as following. It says as follows: why do we have to have the story of Esav's genealogy? So he says, the Midrash says, why did the Holy One, blessed be he, concern himself from the beginning of time with the genealogies of the nations? Because there's lots written about, not just Esav, but lots of other nations. This may be likened to a king who dropped a pearl into sand and pebbles. The king was compelled to search the sand and the pebbles to recover the pearl. As soon as he recovered the pearl, however, he didn't really care very much about the sand and the pebbles, because he was only interested in retrieving the pearl. Now, I think that's very nice for us to think about us being the Jewish nation is the pearl. But I don't know how you feel about that, but I think there is a purpose to sand and pebbles as well, I think. But here we have this idea that we are the special, chosen, so to speak, pearl. But, you know, you've got to sometimes look at the sand and the pebbles, especially if you've got one of those machines, the metal detectors, if you want to find things in the sand. I don't want anybody to go away today thinking Esav is terrible and Esav is horrible and you've got to do everything you can to, shoot them down. And in fact, there's an actual mitzvah in the Torah, in the book of Devarim, in the Parsha of Devarim. It's source 2 on your sheet. Let's look at that together. It says we cannot do anything to attack or oppress, and God is not going to do anything to help us conquer the lands that Esav has been given, Har Seir. So we'll look at that together. It's source 2. Actually, why don't I ask for a volunteer? Debbie, do you want to read the English? Source 2. Source 2.
No.
Just number 2. Just page 1. Front page.
2. Okay. You will be passing through the territory of your kinsmen and descendants of Esav, who live in Seir. Though they will be afraid of you, be very careful. Don't provoke.
Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Do not. That's me. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Do not provoke them, for I will not give you their land, so much as a foot can tread on. I have given the hill country of Seir as a possession to Esav.
Okay, Hashem says, don't oppress Esav, even though they might be scared of you. I'm not going to allow you. I've given them. They've got a possession. You can't have it. And I think that posuk is tucked away somewhere in Devarim. Don't really know that, but really, actually, Hashem's saying basically, don't fight with them. They are your brothers. Achichem b'nei Esav. They are your brothers. They're your family. They've got their possession. You've got yours, and I'm not going to do. God's speaking here through Moshe, saying, I'm not going to do anything to give you their possession. They have what they have. Don't fight with them. But Esav had a grandson, and his name was Amalek. And so that's a separate issue, right? So when we were told about Amalek, this is the Rambam in the Mishnah Torah. This is source 3. And I have a volunteer. Do you want to read it? Yeah, Carol? Source 3. Sorry, Cynthia. Sorry, yeah. Cynthia. Yeah, quite right, Cynthia.
It is a positive commandment to obliterate Amalek, as it says, blot out the memory of Amalek.
I'm just going to read that in Hebrew. Timche es zecher Amalek, which we read the Shabbat before Purim, and we also read it on Parshas Ki. But also we have an obligation, and we're supposed to be Zochor es asher asalach ala Amalek. Remember every day. If you look at the end of Shacharis, it says there's 6 things you have to remember. One of them is we have to remember the Amalek, whether it's a person or an attitude, because Amalek espoused. It's a completely different talk for another time. Espoused happenstance, like we don't have divine providence, we don't have God, everything is fate, and we have to do everything we can to block it out and blot it out. In ancient times, there was a law which we were told you have to kill people that are Amalek. Today, we don't know who that is, thankfully, but all we're saying is Esav might be related to Amalek, and although you've got a commandment to blot out Amalek, Esav and his descendants are not included in that. I'm so sorry, Cynthia. Would you like to carry on?
It is a positive commandment to perpetually remember their wicked deeds.
So remember the wicked deeds of Amalek, and actually we have an obligation to kill Amalek. We don't know who Amalek is, but we shouldn't do it. I'm not suggesting anyone goes out and says, hey, are you from Amalek, and then shoot them. I'm not saying that. We don't even know who the people are who are Amalek today, but the people who live in Seir and the kingdom of Esav's family, we have to look after them. Only Amalek, and I'd like to think this is a way of God telling us that we have to, whenever it comes to, even if we have a commandment to kill someone, we have to do everything we can in our power to prevent the destruction and of innocent people. There are plenty of innocent people. I wish that the people who lived in Gaza would not use UNESCO schools and hide their tunnels. I only heard this week they found another one. They do everything they can. They do everything they can to hide behind the children. I've seen a cartoon that's very poignant where sort of we protect the children and they hide behind the children and they fire from behind them and put the children in the line of firing. So
that doesn't get on the front page.
No.
Absolutely.
I told you journalists have got agendas.
Yeah.
So we have the rabbis have got an agenda for Esav as well.
Yeah, Amaleks
They're made perhaps,
as well.
perhaps okay. All right.
What did I say it is now?
I think there is an ancient map, and I could look it up for you, but I just can't do it right now. I'll write it down, and when I've finished, I will find it for you. But there are ancient maps, and it's nearby. Okay, so at the beginning of this week's Torah, we were speaking about Esav coming to meet Yaakov, and Yaakov is doing everything he can to prepare to meet his brother. And Yaakov is very frightened. So I need a volunteer for a short one. Source 4. Vayira Yaakov ma'od vayetze lo. Carol.
Go on.
4.
This one?
Yeah.
Yaakov was greatly frightened and became anxious.
So there's this double expression. Yaakov was afraid and frightened. Yaakov was afraid and nervous. So Rashi says there were 2 reasons why he was afraid. He was afraid he was going to be killed, but he was anxious he was going to kill someone else. So that's the idea of the dual things of what Yaakov was afraid of. And that's what that quotes. That's quoting the Midrash Rabbah. And if we look at source 5, he was also frightened because he was worried because Esav had some great deeds in his back pocket, and he was worried that perhaps he didn't match up to Esav's greatness. Who would like to read source 5? Okay, go for it, Linda.
Because Esav, is coming to me with the advantage of living in the land of Israel.
Okay, so he was worried Esav had been living in the land of Israel. Yaakov, by now, had been living out of the land of Israel for a long time. And according to lots of rabbis, living in the land of Israel itself is an actual commandment. Not everybody agrees, but if you live in the land of Israel, you're very meritorious, and you have almost like a reward in your back pocket because you're living in the land of Israel. And Yaakov had been living with Lavan all this time, and he was like, I don't live in Israel, and I'm meeting Esav, and I'm getting nervous because maybe I'm really good at learning Torah, and I'm really good at being nice to my wife and my children, but I haven't been living in the land of Israel. And Esav has that merit, and he has another merit. Carry on, please, Linda. All these years
he was dwelling in Israel and honouring his parents. That is to say, he is coming to meet me with the advantage of honouring his parents.
Wow.
Okay, so, and Esav is known to be, he is almost like an archetype, a role model of how to look after your parents, because you can see that he made food for his father. Yitzchak calls him and says, come and make me food. You know, he was known to do everything he could to honour his parents. Now, the rabbis say, yes, he was a role model for honouring his parents, but what was his ulterior motive? So they don't look at it at face value. But Yaakov knew that he was not at home for many years, and he knew that Esav was at home, and Esav was there looking after his parents, and he realised the value of every mitzvah, and he didn't have the mitzvah of living in Israel or looking after his parents. Yes, he followed their directions. They told him, go to the land of our forefathers, go to the house of Lavan and see if you can find a wife for yourself. He was honouring his parents, but he wasn't able on a daily basis to make them dinner or help them, give them a lift. To look after them, whatever it is, whatever honouring your parents. But yes, he was honouring them by doing what they told him to do. The last thing his parents said, go to Lavan's house, go and find there, wait there till your brother calms down. So he was listening to their instructions. But that's not the same as being with them, helping them, taking them to hospital appointments. You know, I know it sounds funny, but it's very, very serious. And Yaakov was worried about that. He was worried, I do not have those things standing me in good stead. Which shows you how incredible it is, which means he realised that Esav had some good points towards about him. And even though he's held out to be the wicked Esav, he actually was a role model at being a person who looked after his parents, and the fact he was in the land of Israel. Okay?
Why do the rabbis always have to down him? You know, like when he greets him with a hug and he's really doing something else.
Okay, so this is the whole question about what is midrash and what are the rabbis trying to say to us. So first of all, we have to understand, well, I'll put it this way, this is my understanding, that when Moshe taught the Torah from God, he heard it from God's mouth, there was accompanying the Torah, the written law, was also the oral law, which was supposed to be oral and never written down. But it came to be that it was written down because we forgot a lot of it. In antiquity, I'm assuming most people, like, they knew loads of things. They didn't have books. The printing press was 15th century. So people didn't write things. People wrote things. Anything that was written was so precious, and it was painstakingly written with ink by a scribe. I know I'm just thinking, because this week my kids are doing the play and has me and Fiddler on the Roof, and I always think to myself, there's only one person in the village that can read. People couldn't read. The rabbi, people didn't have access to the books, so people could learn, and they could everything was oral tradition. But we believe that the Torah isn't just what the written Torah is. We can't understand, for example, don't bathe a cow in its mother's milk as just saying that. We have to understand that. For example, we have in the Shema, we say, you should wear tefillin l'totafos beinei nechem. Well, how do you know what totafos beinei nechem is? And I'm going to translate that as phylacteries, but no one knows what that word is in English. How do we know what that is? Because we've got a tradition, a Masoretic tradition. Yeah. So we know what it is. So there's an underlying ideas that were shared father to son, teacher to rabbi to student. So we have to understand that if we don't read the Torah with the context of the Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral transmission, then we're missing it. But I'd like to say that whenever I've read a midrash, to the best of my ability, it's always pegged on the text. A difficulty in the text, something superfluous in the text, something that's missed out in the text. And I think that the the finite Torah Shebeishsav, the written Torah, when I'm talking about that, the 5 books of Moses, are finite. Within that, it's an unlimited multitude of meaning. And that's like a talk you can, there are concepts.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, if that happened now, they'd say it was Lashon Hara, wouldn't they?
Right, I agree with what you're saying 100%, but we're saying that this is part of the rabbinic tradition, and the rabbis taught us something, and they looked so carefully. And for me, whenever I learn something, whenever I teach something, I hope, I'm going to show you how the rabbis looked so carefully at the words. Even just now at that verse in source 4, and Yaakov was afraid, and he was very frightened.
Sorry, I just had something on my phone with
Okay.
regard to my
Okay.
alarm at home.
You don't need to give me an excuse. It's fine. Just hope everything's okay.
So
But the very look at source 4, Bereishis.
So again, it's interpretation.
It's interpretation. But let's look again, Jill. Let's look again at source 4, right? And Yaakov was frightened and became anxious. And Yaakov was frightened and afraid. Well, why can't it just say he was frightened? So because there's a double expression, the rabbis tell us either he was frightened that he was going to be killed, or he was going to be killed or kill someone else, that double worry. Or he was worried that Esav he was afraid of going into the battle, but he was also afraid of the spiritual merit that his brother had. So everything is pegged on the text. The rabbis look so carefully and they say, why is there a double expression? There must be 2 underlying reasons he's worried. So Rashi brings one midrash which says to kill or be killed. The other midrash he brings, and there are plenty others. I just brought 2 ideas to say there's obviously some sort of, I don't say double entendre, but you know what I'm saying? There's something's going on here that because Hashem wrote the Torah with 2 verbs of expressions of being anxious or being frightened, it's telling us there's something underlying, there's something else going on. Look between the surface. The Torah is a finite amount of verses, right? And hiding underneath there are mountains and mountains and mountains of things for us to
I was
learn.
going to say, how long is it since they'd seen each other? Maybe that's another reason. He didn't know how he was going to be seen.
Of
by
course, many years. Yeah, many years. I think more than 20 actually. I'll check it out how long. Okay. So, we're now going to think about Esav. And so we can see that Yaakov himself was frightened of Esav and the merits he had, the fact he was a really great child to his parents and he lived in the land of Israel. But we'll see now. We'll just look a little bit at the psukim in the Torah, the verses in the Torah, and see what's going on and how the rabbis look at it with a magnifying glass, and how at the surface it doesn't seem like anything is going on too bad, but then we see what's going on here. Something else is going on here. So this is in Parshas Toldos, when we're talking about Esav and Yaakov growing up, and we hear that Esav gets married. Okay, so a volunteer for verse 6, source 6, Bereishis Kaf Vov Lamed Dalad.
When Esav was,
Yep, thank you,
when
Carol.
Esav was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Bereishis the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite.
Okay, anything wrong there?
Double marriage.
No, they were there. Yaakov married 4 women. Okay.
The Hittites, probably, is it?
Okay, what's unnecessary in that verse?
His age?
Pardon me?
His age?
Why do we need to know his age? Thank you very much for
Because he was
asking.
older, well, he was much older than the average would have been in those days.
Maybe. Well, what's his name? Yaakov got married well past that. I think he was nearly 80 if he wasn't older. I can't remember how old he was. I think, yeah. I think Yaakov was much older. Maybe 70 or 80.
What?
Yeah.
When he got married, when he first got married.
So they don't measure their time necessarily the same way you do. That
I know. I don't know. But Yaakov, according to the Midrash, he was much older when he got married. Okay. So
They're
I
obviously
love
much
it.
hardier then. Than
I don't know. But they also lived for much longer. They also lived much longer.
They're wiser. The older they are. I don't know whether perhaps.
But don't forget, he was on the run and he spent 14 years in yeshiva. So, you know. Right, Linda, you have just asked the question that Rashi asks. So, Carol, you've just asked the question. Thank Carol. You've asked the question that Rashi just asked, which is, Why do we need to know that Esav is 40? Because what do we care? Is that significant? Is that teaching us that we want our sons to get married at 40? God forbid. They want us to get married before 40? Okay. Okay. So I want to tell you something. Guess who else got married when they were 40? Isaac. Thank you very much, Ellen. So it's not on your sheet, but in Bereishis 25:20, we have Vayehi Yitzchak ben 40 shana, and Yitzchak was 40 years old when he married Rebecca. So what can we think about that? Sorry? And she was 3.
I was going to
According to
say,
the Midrash. According to the Midrash.
Okay. Yeah, well, he'd be a pedophile now.
Okay, but maybe they got married, maybe she was betrothed to him, but they never actually got married. Maybe she was 3, maybe she was 13, maybe she was taken away from her home at the age of 3. There's all different reasons. Personally, I find the age of 3 very strange. Okay, so now we know that it says actually in the Torah, Yitzchak was 40 when he got married, Esav was 40 when he got married. What are you thinking? Sorry? The father and the son both got married at 40. What's so nice about that?
Nothing particularly. This is later.
Late development. Okay. But do you think it's a good thing? He's following his father's footsteps. So Jill's saying, lovely, he's following in his father's footsteps. Because he's married the wrong people. Here we're going to come and attack him. Here come the journalists. Okay, here come the journalists in the form of Rashi, who says, why do we talk about the fact he's 40 years old? So the same question as Carol. So the rabbis look at the text and say, hey, his father was 40, he was 40. Why do we care? What's so significant? Why did Torah waste the words, he was 40 years old when he met? What can we learn from this?
He should have had the sense not to marry the Hittites.
Well, he should have had sense to not marry the Hittites, because you're supposed to be, do not let your sons marry the daughters of Canaan.
He wasn't honouring his parents.
Well, we'll see. Okay, look what Rashi brings a midrash, okay? A volunteer to read this midrash. Hilary.
Esav is compared to a pig. A pig, when it lies down, stretches forth its cloven hoof, as much as to say, see, I am a clean animal.
Okay, let me interpret that for a second, because the 2 signs of a kosher animal are chewing the cud and split hooves, cloven hooves. So we can't see the internal workings of an animal, but we can see the external. So here we have the idea, Rashi's bringing a midrash, which is telling us Esav is externally looking like, you want to see my shoes, you want to see my feet, you want to see, I'm like dad, I do the same thing as dad, but internally something else is going on, like a pig. And I spoke to my friend who's a vet yesterday, who assured me this is true, and he says that when pigs lie down, they don't lie on their feet, they lie with their feet out, almost like sticking their feet in your face, saying, hello, here are my feet, here are my cloven hooves, look at me, okay? It's symbolic, okay? Understand it in a midrashic way. Whereas other animals, let's say, for example, if you see a cow, they sort of sit on their own feet. They sit on their feet. Now, obviously, I'm not a vet, and I'm not the biggest world expert. Maybe one of you know more than me, but that's what he did tell me. He says, I can't tell you about all animals. All I will tell you is that pigs do lie with their feet out, and they don't sit on their feet, which is quite fascinating, okay? For 40 years, who was reading? Hilary.
In the same way, they rob and extort and pretend to be honourable.
Oh, sorry, hold on a minute. I forgot to. Oh, yeah, okay. So we're talking about Esav and his descendants, okay?
For 40 years, Esav snatched women from their husbands. When he was 40, he said to himself, my father was 40 when he got married. I will do the same.
Okay, now, I didn't bring all the verses, but the verses basically say, it says he did this, or for example, Yitzchak loved him because he was sayed bepiv, because he was great at hunting, but then the rabbis say hunting with his mouth. That means he was cunning, he trapped people with his mouth.
He's got really bad PR.
Yeah.
It just seems so much an opinion of the rabbis. I'm not setting myself up, but it just does seem very biased for.
But you can see that Yaakov, but obviously they had a tradition that Esav set himself out to be. He had an amazing spin doctor. According to the rabbinic tradition, something else was going on there. God was never said anything bad, but they looked carefully and they said he trapped people with his mouth. Sayed bepiv. I haven't given you that verse. that Yitzchak loved Esav because he hunted with his mouth, but it could be he was a hunter par excellence, but you could also see it as he was cunning and he trapped people. He said things and he did other things. And there's an idea that whatever he was doing, he was idolatry, immorality, and murdering people. Yeah, Ellen.
But Yitzchak was supposed to be blind, so he couldn't see everything that happened.
So the question is, we have metaphorically blind, where a person is blinded and they can't see. You know, someone thinks, oh, my son's marvellous, my son's wonderful. Never wants to believe that perhaps their son is a drug addict and they would never turn them in. They'd be like, no, it's not his fault, it's because he was in the wrong crowd and it's not, you know. So people can be blinded without being blind. So we say, there is a midrash which says when he was on the altar, the angels cried and opened his eyes, or he didn't have good eyesight. Yes, all that, which is why perhaps when Yaakov came, he said, Hakol kol Yaakov hadam yedei Esav, are these the hands of, right? But there is an idea of, are you blinded to seeing the faults within someone?
You know what I find interesting as well, you know, about the pigs, how they lie down. You know, for Arabs, one of the greatest insults is for you to show them your feet.
Really?
Did you know that? That was the thing. That's why when they pulled things down, they hit with the shoes and show the feet, because it is such an insult. And I wonder if actually that also comes from the fact that, you know, of this interpretation.
Maybe, but I think it's really interesting what you said. It reminds me of Avraham when he was greeting the guests, and we spoke about Lot. He said you have to wash your feet, because if there's an idea is that, let's say, if you don't wash your feet, you're bowing down to the places where you've been to, the dust of the earth. Maybe they worshipped the power of their own mobility and the power of where they went themselves.
It's interesting. I just find that
interesting. Thank you. I told you were going to give me some insights. I'm writing down notes as we go, and I'm going to make sure I listen to the recording. So Rivka and Yitzchak were not so happy with Esav's choice of wives. Okay? Here comes, so we said we've got, so one second, let me just get back to page 1. So Yitzchak and Rivka, so 2634, look at 2635. We know the names of his wives. He married a wife called Judith, who was the daughter of Be'eri the Hittite, and Basmas, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. The next verse, source 8 in your sheet, which is Bereishis Kaf Vav Lamed Hey. It's the bottom of page 1. Okay. Debbie, you want to go for it?
They were a source of bitterness to Isaac.
So Isaac and Rebekah were not happy about Esav's choice of wife. Why were they a source of bitterness? Rashi brings the midrash. Because Shehayu Ovdos Avodah Zarah, because they used to worship idols. Okay, now.
Used to.
Yeah, well, they would worship idols. Okay, so it gets worse. Just saying, the rabbis are really out to get Esav. And in chapter 28, verses 6 to 9, at the end of Parshas Toldos, I'm just going to read it in English, it's not on the sheet. When Esav saw that Yitzchak had blessed Yaakov and sent him off to Padan Aram to take a wife from there, telling him, don't marry a Canaanite woman, it's not on your sheet. And Yaakov realized he had to obey his father, and he went to Padan Aram. So Esav thought that the Canaanite women that he married displeased his father. Picking it up on source 10. So Esav went to Yishmael, who was Avraham's son, and he went to Yishmael, and he took a wife in addition to the wives that he had, a wife called Machalat, the daughter of Yishmael, the son of Avraham, the sister of Nevias. So we see that Esav himself sees when Yaakov has been sent away from Canaan, he's thinking to himself, now, my mum and dad not so happy with me that I've got these 2 Canaanite wives. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to marry one of my dad's cousins. And, you know, he can't complain because it's Ishmael. It's one of Abraham's sons. Right? That's actually the words. That's source 10 in your sheet. Okay. So, just in the back of your minds, turn to page 1. What were the names of Esav's wives? Judith, Basmas, and
Machala.
Okay, that's what their names are at 26 and 27. Judith, Basnas and Machlas. Are we ready? Hang on to your seatbelts. Okay. The Rashbam tells us that Esav thought to himself, maybe I'm not going to have a share in the land of Israel and I've lost the opportunity, it's not on a sheet, to have the birthright because I have done this terrible thing of marrying Canaanite girls. So I'm going to reclaim my Abrahamic heritage and get my portion in the land of Israel, and I'm going to marry someone in the land who's from the land, who's from Abraham's family. That's what the Rashbam says. So here we go. Now we're starting Parshas Vayishlach, the last chapter in Parshas Vayishlach, Lamed Vav, source 11 on your sheet. Welcome everyone. Come and meet Esav. This is the line of Esav. Okay, Cynthia.
Right.
Source 11.
Yeah.
Chapter 36, verses 1 to 3. Lamed Vav, Aleph to Gimel.
This is the line of Esau. This is Edom. Esau took his wives from the Canaanite women, Ada, daughter of Elon, that is Hittite.
Aholibama. It's okay.
We can all see it.
At least I didn't give it to you in Hebrew.
Daughter of Agar, daughter of Zibeon, the Hivite. Also Basemath, daughter of Ishmael, the sister of Nebaioth. Oh.
Right, so sit next to the person sitting next to you. Turn the page over. Compare and contrast 11 to 6 and 10.
Yes. Oh, good. Very different names. Oh, isn't that odd?
Where do I know where Elon comes from now?
Okay. Okay, so because I knew that was going to be confusing, I have made you your very own Esav family tree chart. And I'm just telling you, this took hours and hours and hours, and I'll explain to you why as we go on. And thank you very much, Sue, or someone in the office, for colour coding it. I don't know if you can see this. It comes backwards and forwards. It doesn't come out the right way, but I'll add it to the chat if I ever put this up on YouTube. Okay, so this is Esav's family tree.
Wow.
Okay, take it from me, it's going to get more complicated. And I'm supposed to be finishing at 11:30, but I came late, so it's terrible. Anyway, okay, so here we've got, starting on the left-hand side, we've got Avraham, who married Hagar and Sarah. They had a child called Isaac, and I didn't actually put that dot in. I think I'm going to do that, because that's their child. I'll do the dotting. Avraham married Hagar. Hagar had Ishmael. And Avraham also married somebody else called Keturah, who's probably Hagar, but let's leave it there. Hagar had a son called Ishmael. Ishmael had a daughter who is known by two names, Basmas and Machalat. Right? Okay. Then we've got... Okay. Machalat. Okay. And then we've got Isaac, who had two sons, Yaakov and Esav. And Esav has got three red lines coming out of him. One is Aholibama, who is identified as Judith. And then we have Ada, who's identified as Basmas. Thanks very much for having the same name, but swapping it over between two different people. And Basmas and Machalat. So hope that clears up any confusion you had. Thank you. I think you are Rashi today. We have Rashi, born 1066, right? 1066 till 1105.
This is really great moisturizer.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, wow. I'm even more confused.
Okay. So, right? Okay. So, don't worry about it because it's not so relevant. The point is their names have changed, okay? The first names of Esav's wives are changed. They're different. Why does chapter 36, which is Parshas Vayishlach, rename Esav's wives? So there is an idea that some of his wives died and he remarried other people. That's one way of looking at it. But there's another way of looking at it.
Maybe he wanted his parents to think of them in a different light.
Thank you. We have another Rashi. Look at source 12. Look at source 12. I'll tell you the truth. Sue, you're hiding here. You could be like running a kollel. Okay, so, right, source 12. Okay, Sue, source 12.
Ada, the daughter of Elon, she is identical with Basmat, daughter of Elon, and she was called Basmat because she offered spices as incense to idols.
Okay, so like the word besomim, like we have in Havdalah, besomim, her name got changed to Basmas because she was the besomim girl. She was the person who offered up spices to idolatry. It can't just be that she offered up spices. There's a midrash which tells us she's offering up spices. Okay, so we're not so happy. But she's obviously like a baddie. She was also Canaanite, so that's like terrible. Okay, Aholibama. Why was her name Aholibama? Source 13.
Yeah, exactly.
Why in these days would people choose to call their child?
Let's talk about.
I mean, if it's got such bad connotations. Toronto. You look in the Torah.
But there might be other people. There might be other people called that name. I don't know.
Right.
It's on my list of things to look at. I'll look it up for you as a name. Okay, I know someone called Ada.
Yeah.
I know a few people actually.
Yes.
Right, source 13. Ellen.
Olimaba is identical with Judith. Esav, changed her name to Judith, Jewess.
Yehudit, like Yehudi.
Yeah, suggesting that she had abandoned idol worship so that he might deceive his father.
Okay.
That's complicated. How did you
Okay,
figure that out?
so I didn't figure out at all, but it comes from the word ohel, like a tent, and bama is like a place where they would offer up sacrifices. So it's a play on her words. The Midrash says, what's the name ohali bama? Ohel, she put up a tent on a high place which they would offer up sacrifices. These people were all idol worshippers, and they were Hittites, and they were Canaanites, and Canaanites are the big no-no. We know that when Abraham sent Eliezer, or his servant, to find a son for Yitzchak, he was like, whatever you do, don't go to the Canaanites, we don't want to go there. So we have Basmas, who's the daughter of Elon, who's the Hittite, who was Ada, the daughter of Elon. Then we have Judith, the daughter of Be'eri, the Hittite, is a Holibama. And Machalat was Basmas. So Machala also means like an illness from the word choleh, like cholim. So is an illness, is a sickness.
Rabbi Robinson's was called no. Rabbi Shacker's wife.
I don't remember.
Sorry.
Okay, so I just want to show you that the rabbis, like you today, are doing a very close reading. So Carol, for example, noticed, what's the significance? Why do we need to know he was 40? Then comparing and contrasting. What was he doing with his dad? Looking at the people's names. They didn't just look at the stories in isolation. They looked, where else are Esav's wives' names? What are their names? Etc., etc. I'll have to maybe come back and do the second part another time. Okay. Source 14.
I can give you a slot in next year.
Okay, please go. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay. With pleasure, with absolute pleasure.
Okay, good.
The truth is, you could each do the presentations yourself. You just have to prepare. Because we are sitting here in a group of Talmidei Chachamim, because I can see that you are asking the most amazing questions and you're bringing in things that you've learned in other contexts. And that's what the rabbis did. They looked at Esav's wives, and they looked at his wives. They were written about here, here, and here. They amalgamated them, saying, what's going on here? What can we learn about this? Okay, now. So what is going on here? So the art scroll has a commentary. I love this little sentence. It's like, why do we have this chapter? So this chapter, we've got different names for the wives of Esav. So what's going on here? So Art Scroll says, volunteer, I choose Jill, 14.
It is clear that the Torah would not have devoted so much space to this topic unless it contained many sublime mysteries. Though much of such esoteric knowledge eludes us, the Kabbalists have dwelt heavily upon it, profoundly mystical part of the Zohar, known as the Idra Rabbah, is devoted to its exposition.
Right. I do not know anything about Kabbalah. I don't know anything about Idra Rabbah, and that would also presuppose that I was over 40 and I could learn it. I am obviously over 40, but I'm just saying I don't know anything about it, but it's really interesting to say there's lots written about it, but it's beyond our understanding. So just because we don't understand something, it doesn't mean there isn't something we can learn.
Exactly.
But what I would like to do is have a take-home message. Why is something written about the generations of Esav? So I'm going to skim through the next part, otherwise we won't get to the bit that I find the most important. I can see it's already 11 o'clock. Okay. So this is the Midrash Rabbah in Parshas Vayishlachפרשת, and it says, this is source 15, Hashem v'chein nis'asek b'yichus shel b'nei Esav. Hashem concerned himself, he busied himself with the genealogy of Esav's family in these chapters. The Eile told us Esav, lehodia, to disclose, to make known, nivulon, the degeneracy. What's going on here? There's a lot of incest. You're going to see there's lots and lots of incest. Now, yes, I will agree that it's not explicit in the text saying this person married that person, but I would like you to come with me on a tiny little journey and look back at this map and where do the rabbis get it from? So the first thing is source 16. Okay? Source 16. In order to read source 16, you have to look back at source... Let me have a look. Yeah, no, I know. Let's have a look. No. It is source 11. Right, source 11. Let's write that on my paper so I don't forget. Yeah, source 11 above. I'm going to read it to you. Okay, this is the line of Esav, that is Edom. Esav took his wives from the Canaanite women, Ada, the daughter of Enan the Hittite, and Oholibama, daughter of Anna, daughter of Zibeon the Hivite. Now, when you read it, I specially glossed over it. Now, reading it more carefully, I'll read it again. Oholibama, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zibeon the Hivi. Pardon me? We don't know. No, I'll say it again. Oholibama, the daughter of so-and-so and the daughter of so-and-so. They're both men. She's got two dads. Very, very 21st century. What shall I tell you?
Wow.
Seems that she's got two fathers. But if you don't read it carefully, you can't notice that.
No,
That's right, because, okay, can everyone go back to source 11?
Yeah.
Right? Right? And Oholibama, the daughter of Anna, daughter of Zibeon the Hivite. You got me?
Anna's,
So she got two, yes.
They're both, Anna and Zibeon are both men. Okay? No, it gets worse. It gets worse.
But
Anna-
daughter.
Anna is not a daughter.
It said
Source 16, Anna is the son of Zibeon.
and then she's called the daughter of
Oh,
So, right? So, these are the sons of Zibeon, Aya and Anna. Okay? Ele b'nei Zivon, Aya v'Anna. These are the sons of her, okay? So, somehow, she is the daughter of her father and her grandfather.
Yes.
Okay? So, you could argue and say, there is a way of saying that. I know it's a little bit disturbing. Okay?
Confused.
I told you. Listen, if you thought the Kardashians have got...
They got nothing.
Okay, very, very disturbing.
Yes.
Very disturbing, but it's... But the point is, the rabbis noticed, they know there's a verse which says the children of Zibeon are Aya and Anna, and they see that Oholibama is called the daughter of Aya, the daughter of Anna, and the daughter of Zibeon. And they're like, hold on a minute, what's going on here? So you could say, well, if someone's talking about someone, they could talk about me and they could say, oh, she's Joe's daughter, she's Max's granddaughter.
Yeah.
You could say that,
Yeah.
but that's unusual because people don't generally tend to say that. It's not generally spoken about like that in Tanakh. Let's look at Rashi. Could we get one of our Rashi friends to say something? Cynthia? Let's see what Rashi says. 16. It's Rashi on 36:2, Lamed base.
If she was the daughter of Anna, she could not have been the daughter of Zibeon, for Anna was the son of Zibeon, as it is said. These are the sons of Zibeon, Aya and Anna. The Torah is telling us that Zibeon took his daughter-in-law, Anna's wife, and from them Oholibama was born.
Okay, let me tell you exactly what that means. The grandfather had a physical relationship with his daughter-in-law, and they had a child. So that child was born to Mrs. Anna, whatever her name was, we don't know. So everybody just made the assumption it was the child of Anna, but in fact, it was the grandchild It was the child. It was Ali Bama who Esav married. That's who he picks to marry. But not that he knows. It's someone whose father-in-law and daughter-in-law spent the night together, or more than the night together. I dread to think. They had a child, but everybody had made the assumption that because she was married to Anna, I know it's difficult because Anna's a woman's name, that is what Rashi's telling us. The Midrash Tanchuma is we have a tradition which says that the grandfather slept with his own daughter-in-law, had a child, and that child becomes the wife of Esav. This informs you that all of these were illegitimate births.
Yeah.
Just from now. I know that Jill doesn't like this, but no, seriously, Jill. But what I'm saying to you is, it's part of the Midrash, and where did the Midrash get it from? Because it says she's got two fathers. Why does she have two fathers? How did it come out of nowhere? So on a simple level, you can say father, grandfather. We're just going back, saying she comes from that rabbinic dynasty. Or you could say, hold on a minute, what's going on here? And so the rabbis have a tradition. Lots of things were going on, bubbling under the surface. Okay, so if you look at the picture and ask yourself, how was I supposed to draw that? Zibion, you've got an adulterous union between Zibion, here's Zibion, right, has a relationship with Anna's wife, and they have a child. I've drawn the line here, because that's the adulterous offspring, and that's Ahalibama or Yehudis, whatever you want to call it. She, poor girl, didn't have much of a chance.
No, she didn't.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
And that's the first
That's it.
incestuous relationship that we like to find out. So there is this idea, you want to know why the Torah bothered to tell us so many things about Esav's family? Get a magnifying glass out, look carefully at the Psukim, and you will see hiding there people who seem to have two fathers. And they didn't make it up recently. Okay? So the idea of two fathers is not a new thing that they've just invented recently. So let's move on. Now this is the part that I really want to talk about. And that is a lady whose name is Timnah. Okay? And she's mentioned in these verses. And it says, Va'achos Lotan Timnah. And Lotan's sister was called Timnah. It's just talking about Esav's family, and it says Lotan's sister was Timnah. Now, just to quickly look back at the map, okay? It's going to get much more confusing, so prepare yourself. Right, so we've got Seir, Seir's wife. They have 3 children, Lotan, Zibion, and more children, and other children. Okay, and Lotan has a sister called Timnah. Now, I couldn't put Timnah there because I needed to put Timnah there because she has a relationship with someone on the other side of the Esav family tree. We're going to be looking at that now. The question is, why do we care if Lotan had a sister called Timnah? Is that relevant to our lives? And you will see that 3 words, the sister of Lotan was Timnah, becomes hugely significant to us. Timnah is a lady who's mentioned 6 times in Tanakh, 3 times in here, and 3 times in Divrei Hayamim, the Chronicles. And do not confuse her with a place called Timnah, which ends with a different letter, it ends with a hey. The Rambam, Maimonides, in his book, The Guide to Perplex, source 18, asks, why are there certain verses in the Torah we've got no idea what they're for and what they mean? And his classic verse for wanting to know, why do we know or why do we care about Timnah, who she is and who she was, or who her brother was? What is that going to help me in my life? How am I going to learn anything that's relevant to my life? And I would like to suggest those 3 words that look like they're hiding in Esav's genealogy have a very important take-home message for us. First, let's look at the Rambam, source 18. It's his Moreh Nevuchim, Guide to the Perplexed, portion 3, 51-2. There are in the law, in the Torah, portions which include deep wisdom, but have been misunderstood by many people. They require, therefore, an explanation. I mean the narratives contained in the Torah, which many consider of being no use whatsoever. Did Moshe have nothing else to write other than the sister of Lotan was Timnah? The Rambam, Maimonides, is asking this question himself. Every narrative in the Torah serves to contain a purpose in connection with religious teaching. It either helps to establish a principle of faith or to regulate our actions and to prevent wrong and injustice among men, or we could say among people. What can we learn from a piece of genealogical information that Timnah was Lotan's sister? Are you with me? It's a good question. And we see that the Rambam, Maimonides himself, is asking, don't dismiss it. Look at it carefully, because there's something hiding there we're going to learn about. Who was Timnah? Okay, this is also in chapter 36 of this week's parasha. I hope you'll all go to shul this week to hear the Torah reading. Okay, source 19. Timnah haysa pilegesh le'Eliphaz ben Esav vateled le'Eliphaz es Amalek. Timnah was a concubine of Esav's son, Eliphaz, and she bore Amalek to Esav. Now, the word concubine is difficult for us to understand today because it means it's a sort of a wife, but not exactly a wife, maybe a common law wife. Don't exactly know what it was. I don't know. Probably women didn't want to be on their own if they weren't attached somehow to a man. For example, if you think about living in Iran now, women are not allowed to walk out without the permission of their husband or their brother. If you had nobody, it was better that you were attached to someone than you were alone. So Timnah is the mother of Amalek, and she was married. She was the concubine of Eliphaz, Esav's son. So you can have a look at that in your picture. The problem I've got with that is in Divrei Hayomim. Did I write this here? Not sure that I did. Okay, it says here. I didn't write this. I don't have this one on the sheet because I couldn't fit everything on. I don't want to make it too long. Only 4 pages. These are the names of the families of Esav. Their families are Timnah, Alva, and Jetheth. Okay, so Timnah is counted as one of the clans of Esav. So is that a male thing or a female thing? Maybe she died in childbirth. It's impossible to say. Maybe she died in childbirth and had a boy who was named after her. Difficult to understand. Look at source 20 on your sheet. The sons of Eliphaz, Teman, Omar, Zephi, Gatam, Kenaz, Timnah, and Amalek. But Timnah's a girl, but we could say B'nai Eliphaz, the children. Okay, let's just hold that thought for a second.
She was the mother.
She was the mother, but it says here in Divrei Hayomim that she was the child of Eliphaz. How are we going to...
Eliphaz's
concubine. So now we want to really think about what's going on here. Why do the rabbis tell us? Where do they get it from that there's something going on here? Midrash Tanchuma, source 21 in your sheet, to teach us. By Midrash Tanchuma Vayeshev, source 21 in your sheet, Melamed Shenosa Espito, to teach us that Eliphaz married his own biological daughter.
This isn't too much.
Oh, God, not this time of the morning, please.
If you think Hello Magazine's got good stories, just look at the Torah, because it's just, you don't need to read anything else. Okay?
Could it not possibly?
By the way, you can all take this home. This is going to be your Shabbos Devar Torah. It's in the Seir. Come to shul, hear it.
Could it not possibly be though that like the children were named for the parents? It was common in some communities.
We could say that.
Like John was
but we
the
have
father
that's
and
what I
John was
said.
the son.
That's what I said.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
So we've always got an easy way to understand it, but the rabbis are like, this doesn't make sense. They want to see what's going on here. So that's what the rabbis say, source 21, to teach us that.
Before they had the laws of morality, the whole world was like this, wasn't it? That's how they reproduced.
Well, they used to marry their cousins, but I'd like to think that people did not marry their own daughter.
No.
Okay. To teach us that Eliphaz, married his own daughter. How? He had a relationship with the wife of Seir, and the wife of Seir became pregnant. From that relationship, they gave birth to Timnah. He married Timnah, Eliphaz married Timnah, as if he married the daughter of Seir. but she was really his own daughter.
Whoa.
Okay, look at the map. Okay. Okay, so Esav had. Oh, sorry, not Esav. Sorry. I'm giving too much away. Eliphaz. Why am I? Yeah, Eliphaz. Yellow, very strange line because it's so hard to trace. Eliphaz down there, the son of Esav, had an adulterous relationship with Seir's wife.
Yeah.
They have a daughter. I'm afraid this is so hard to draw this family tree. Over there, and their daughter is Timnah. And then Timnah had a baby called Amalek. Is that nice?
So did she have it? Yeah, with Eliphaz.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Rashi's telling you that. Now, how do the rabbis get that?
Yes.
So let's see how they got that. I'm telling you, it doesn't come out. It's not pie in the sky. It comes from somewhere. Where did they get it from? In Chronicles, these are the sons of Seir: Lotan, Shoval, Sivon, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, Dishan. The sons of Lotan, Hori and Homan, and Lotan's sister was Timnah. So Lotan doesn't get Timnah doesn't get named as the child of Seir because she was not Seir's child. She was Lotan's sister because they had the same mother. Are you with me?
No.
Okay, I will repeat myself. Okay?
What number are you?
22.
22. Okay.
22. It says Devarim Chronicles. The children of Seir are Lotan, Shoval, Zibon, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. And the sons of Lotan are Hori and Homan. And Lotan's sister, this is the verse we're looking at, was called Timnah. But she doesn't get counted as the children of Seir. Because she's not Seir's child. She's Mrs. Seir's child. Because there was an adulterous relationship going on there.
Oh.
We don't know who Lotan was married to.
We don't have to worry about Lotan. We're just saying that it says there's these three words and the daughter of Lotan is Timnah. Who cares? Rambam says there's something to teach us there because she was his sister, because she was his maternal sister and not his paternal sister because his mother had an affair with Eliphaz. And therefore Timnah was she was Lotan's sister but not his He's not his father's child.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Why do we go into so much detail about Timnah? Why does Rambam talk about this verse? Why does Maimonides say that Lotan's Timnah's sister is so important? Because we have to expose the immorality and adultery that is going on. Look what Rashi says. Rashi tells us that she was the concubine of Eliphaz.
Yeah.
This is source 24. This is stated to tell you, this is Rashi Lamed Vav Yud Beis, source 24. This is stated to tell you in what importance Abraham was held, how eager people were to attach themselves to his descendants. This Timnah was a descendant of the chieftains because Lotan was the royal family. And Lotan was one of the chieftains who inhabited Seir. He was a prince, and he was one of the Horites who dwelt there from ancient times. She said to Eliphaz, I am a princess, but I want to marry you because you're part of the Abrahamic tribe. And if I can't marry you, I'll agree to be your concubine. The plot thickens. Okay? Now, why do we need to know Va'achos Lotan Timnah? Why do we need to know that? Because Lotan was a chief, and I think I've got it on my sheet, but I didn't give it on your sheet. No wonder I put it on my sheet. I wondered why I wrote it. Okay? That he was... It's not in your sheet. I should really add it in for other people for another time. These are the Eile Shemos. You don't have it. If you want to look it up, it's in Divrei Hayomim 36:40. These are the names of the princely tribes of Esav according to the households. The Aluf Timnah, she had, Aluf means like, it's a prince without a crown. It's almost like a tribal prince. Like in Africa, they've got lots and lots of people of the royal family. They're not the crowned prince, but it's like the prince in waiting, like, I suppose, Her Royal Highness, so to speak, like Beatrice and Eugenie. Aluf Avla, Aluf, you haven't got it, Aluf Yoses. They were known to be royalty. Royalty marries is a concubine? What is going on here? 10 minutes. Okay. I hope you're sufficiently confused, but this is all to try and find out why is the verse, Lotan is Timnah's sister, Timnah is Lotan's sister, what is the significance of that verse? And the rabbis are asking, and Rambam says, don't ignore it. You might think it's not important, it is important. He was a crown prince, she was royalty. Nevertheless, she married Eliphaz. Why did she marry Eliphaz? Here's a story in the Gemara. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, and it's source 25 on your sheet. And it's a story told of a king whose name was Menashe ben Cheskia. And Menashe was a very wicked king. Cheskia was the 14th king of the kingdom of Judah, and his son Menashe became king and reigned for 55 years. But he reversed all the good things that his father did. I think that's true. No, I'll have to check that. I'll just remind myself. Okay, here we go. Source 25. Menashe, the son of Chizkiah, would sit and teach flawed interpretations of the Torah narratives. So what I've done is the actual translation is in bold, but I've fleshed it out with other words, okay? The interpretation of the Torah narratives. Menashe said, but did Moshe need to write insignificant matters, teaching things like Lotan's sister was Timnah? What on earth do we need to know that? Which is really interesting. He picked the same verse as the Rambam. Why do we need to know Timnah was a concubine to Eliphaz? Menashe began to mock a few verses and ultimately violated the entire Torah. You have to believe everything is important. Even if you don't know the reason for it, everything's important. The Gemara asks, with regards to that verse we came to discuss, in any event, what is the significance of the verse, and Lotan was Timnah's sister? Lotan's sister was Timnah. The Gemara explains, Timnah was the daughter of kings, as it is written, Aluf Lotan, and Aluf Timnah. And each chief is a member of the monarchy, albeit without a crown. And that is why they are called chief and not king. Timnah wanted to convert to Judaism. Okay? She approached Abraham. It would seem impossible, this isn't on the sheet, it would seem impossible that Timnah actually approached Abraham, because if Esav, who was her grandfather, or by the way, just so you should know, possibly her father, because maybe it was Esav who had the Rabbi Bereishis said maybe he had a relationship with Seir's wife, so maybe her grandfather, and he was 15 when Abraham died. It was very unlikely, however young he was when he got married and had children, that he would have actually met his own granddaughter. But it means she sought to attach herself to the descendants of Abraham somehow. Yitzchak and Yaakov were also approached. They didn't accept her. She went and became a concubine to Eliphaz, the son of Esav. And she said to herself, it's preferable that I become a maidservant to this nation rather than a nobleman for another nation. Timnah felt it would be better to marry into the patriarchal lineage, the Avraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov lineage. And she thought, if they're not going to let me in, the next best thing is Esav. And Esav or Eliphaz, I'm happy to go in. Amalek emerged from her and afflicted the Jewish people. What is the reason that the people were punished by suffering at the hands of Amalek? It's due to the fact... Is that the end of my time? What's that supposed to mean? It's due to the fact... supposed to be theatrical effect, because they should not have rejected her. Wow.
Now we know why. Who says that they should not have rejected her?
Well, the rabbis say it in the Gemara and Sanhedrin, because King Menashe was mocking, why do we need to know that? What do we care about her? And the point is, we do care about her. She came from the royal family. She married Eliphaz. Why did she do that? Because she wanted so much to be part of the Abraham tradition, and they didn't accept her.
But who is saying?
The rabbis are saying...
they should not have rejected her. They're saying that that's what they
The rabbis are saying it.
Hashem is saying that's why.
Well, we believe that the rabbis were saying it was some sort of divine prophecy, or there's a tradition, the oral tradition, this is written in the Gemara, that they were punished, in inverted commas, or we today are being punished by the Amalekites because Timnah really wants to be part of the Jewish nation, and they said, sorry, you can't join.
I was going to say that we're not meant to judge people by their background.
We're not supposed to judge people by their background.
But we
Okay.
do make it difficult for
I was
people
gonna
to
say,
convert.
it's
It's not.
It's not easy.
I think I've just opened up a can of worms, just on the table here. Okay. Do you think they were right to refuse her?
That's not the only example, is it? There's the other one of, oh God, you have to give me, my memory isn't what
Okay.
it was. But the other case of, we rejected somebody who became very hostile towards us as well. Shouldn't have said anything without.
Okay, I can't think what you mean. I'm sure there are, and I'd have to like. Oh, Kamsa Bar Kamsa.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
That's why they say from they rejected his sacrifice. He wasn't invited to the party, and the rabbis didn't do anything about it.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Really interesting.
Yes,
I told you that you were going to think of things. Thank you.
Couldn't remember.
Okay, Kamsa Bar Kamsa. Really interesting. You have no idea what can happen when you reject someone.
Yes.
Excellent. Joint effort there from Carol and Hillary. No, really, that's really very moving. How you've got to be so careful how you treat people.
Yes.
And how you don't invite someone to the party, and then it's the story of Tisha B'Av. Don't invite someone to the party, you have no idea what the aftermath will be.
Yes.
So the question is, they were perhaps well within their rights to refuse her. She was illegitimate, she was a concubine, etc., etc.
It wasn't
But-
just that she, sorry, the reason they was rejected is because of the reason she wanted to join. It wasn't some
Maybe.
religious revelation.
So maybe
In fact,
she had an ulterior motive. Maybe
Yeah.
she wanted to, maybe she was, dare I say, Meghan Markle, trying to get in the royal family, but not having the right motives. She wasn't, I don't want to, I'm not accusing Meghan Markle of anything. I'm just giving us an idea to explain to us, but I'm saying it's to understand what's going on here. And
read her truth.
so, do you know what I'm saying?
They're tarring her with the same Esau.
But they're saying that maybe she didn't have the right motives. There is another idea. Is if you're trying to convert for an ulterior motive, for example, we're told in Yoredea, if anyone wants to look it up, 26812, that if someone wants to get married because they've got a Jewish or girlfriend or boyfriend, that's you're not really supposed to encourage them. You should try and dissuade them.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
And they have to give up their partner for a year and live with a rabbi.
No.
Yeah.
No,
I don't know exactly what the
That's
rules
what I
are.
was told.
no, we don't.
Okay. It seems that she was altruistic. I'm fully aware that we're almost at past, so if anybody has to go, let me know, but otherwise I'll stay for a few minutes.
Yeah, and then she died.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Maybe she was a social climber, and that's why she wanted to, even though she was the royal family, because she was already famous, she wanted more. Maybe she was a social climber. Maybe she was willing temporarily to sacrifice her royalty to, improve her social status. We don't know. We have no idea. And how is it possible that from the fact she was rejected, that Amalek came from her? And for that, I'd like to share something with you that I found. Don't ask how I found this. It's an academic paper about something called paradoxical rejection aggression link. Think about it. I'll just read what the Sage publication wrote. It's written in 2011. People are strongly motivated to feel accepted by others, yet when faced with acute peer rejection, they often aggress against the very peers they desire acceptance from. Think about the playground. They want to be accepted in the gang, even though the gang don't treat them nicely, right? But then when they're not included in the gang and they're treated badly, they snitch up teachers and they get the gang in trouble, and then the gang hate them even more. So which may lead to further rejection. Acute peer rejection evokes hostile intent attributions that in turn lead to aggressive reactions. And I thought that's so pertinent. She really wanted to be part of it. You're not letting me in.
Yes.
And just, So what can we learn from Timnah and the fact she was Lotan's sister. Okay? So I'd like to share some words of wisdom from Mark Twain, advice he gave to youth in 1882, which is still pertinent today, I would say. If a person offends you and you are in doubt as to whether it was intentional or not, do not resort to extreme measure. And I think if we can learn anything from all this jungle of incest and terrible behaviour, we can learn if someone does something, or if we're not invited to a party, there might be a reason. I want to tell you something. My daughter, I made a wedding on the 24th of October, and we did not invite anyone. It was family, and the bride and groom invited them all. It was really close, and I think people thought I was joking. And I said, we're not making a big wedding, and that's it. And I think people were a bit offended. When they realised no one else was invited, they got it. Yeah. But I really feel like, you know, if you're making a party, people be like, well, how come she never invites me? Maybe she's on a budget. Maybe she's got space. Don't think, oh, she hates me, that's why she's not inviting me. No. But some people take it so badly. Yeah. And you have to be aware of who am I going to offend? Who, if I don't include them? To think about inclusivity, but also to not take things personally when people don't invite us. And
what did you say? Did people come?
No, I did. Well, I think when they realised nobody else was, they think they were all right about it. So I think we have to work on ourselves to make sure we include people who we think might get offended easily wherever we can, but also not to take it personally if someone doesn't include us. Yeah. But I also think that if you are in charge of a company and you're in charge of employing, think what it feels like to be rejected when you're going for a job.
Oh, yeah.
And think about what it felt like if that was you being rejected. Yeah. And I know sometimes I've gone for jobs and they haven't even responded. They just don't even respond. They just don't. Painful. It's like you don't even have the courtesy to respond. Now, I'm not suggesting that someone's going to bite you back, but you have no idea. We have stories about someone who took revenge because they were whatever, and it's just awful. They just go back to the place, their old school, where there was a teacher they didn't like, and they just go stabbing people.
That's what's been happening in America, all the with the partners and So we have no idea. So here we have, in this chapter 36, hiding lots of immorality. And one little verse, the sister of Lotan is Timnah, which looks like, why do we care? Why do we know? We don't care. We want to know, she was Lotan's sister. She was royalty. She tried to get into the Abrahamic family, and she was rejected. Because she was rejected, it came back to bite us big time, and it still comes back to bite us today. And the Rambam, sorry, yes, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I'm just going to go back to this, Esau was of the Abrahamic genealogy, so she really was, in a way,
trying to get in there.
But she was part of it if she was, came through Eliphaz, who was Esau's son.
She was part of the Abrahamic tradition, but not the Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov part of the tradition. Rambam says in his introduction to Perek Chelek, this is Maimonides again, the Torah comes from Hashem, HaTorah min Hashamayim, source 28. Hu shena'amin ki kol HaTorah hazos hanatuna al yedei Moshe Rabbeinu olav hashalom. We have to believe the whole Torah is given to us from Moshe, our teacher, entirely is from God. Shehi kula mipi hagvura. Everything comes from God. Me'es Hashem yisbarach. V'timna haisa pilegesh, and Timnah was the concubine. V'anochi Hashem elokecha, and I am the Lord your God, from the Ten Commandments, or V'shema Yisrael, and Hero Israel, Hashem elokeinu Hashem echad, hakol mipi hagvura, hakol Torahs Hashem tamima, tahora u'kadosha ve'emes, is all perfect from the mouth of God. As much as we value Shema Yisrael, or I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt, or any other pasukim, every pasuk is of equal importance. If we don't know the importance, it's because we haven't got there yet. And Rambam talks about Timnah, and I'd like to just remind you, we spoke about Esav. He seems like he's okay, the face of it. Things are going on under the surface. Why do we talk about his family? Because we have to respect everyone. Do not think we are holier than thou. We have to respect everyone. do not mix up, do not do anything to oppress Esav and Seir. They are innocent bystanders. It's the only people we were asked to remember and destroy is Amalek. And we should know that there are lots of sublime mysteries that we know nothing about. And if anyone finds out anything about them, please get back to me. And I've got a few things to get back to you. I'll get back to Sue, please, God, in the next few days. It's chapter 36 is filled with hiding incestuous relationships. And the most incestuous of all is Timnah, who comes from an incestuous relationship. She perhaps was the child of her own grandfather or father. And what does it feel like to be rejected? And try, if anyone ever is in a position of rejection, to rationalise it and say it's okay. And if you ever have to think about including people, do the best you can to include people. And every single word and every single letter of the Torah is from God. And everything's important. I thank you all so much for coming today. And I thank you for sharing your words of wisdom. And I look forward to coming back another time.